This is the site of the beginning of one of my, I guess my family, or favorite family stories that I was around for. This was back, I think, around Christmas of 2006, because I know I was away at school, but I was here for the break. And anyway, my cousin Buck and my great-uncle Charlie were in this warehouse here, this shop, working on a tractor. Buck was perched up on top of one of its tires, and his foot slipped. He fell down and hit his stomach on the tire on the way down, and cut his hand on something. I'm not really sure what it was. Cut it really badly. So the wind got knocked out of him by falling on the tire. He falls over, and Charlie rushes around, worried about what's going on, seeing all the blood. In the debacle, Buck had smeared blood all over his shirt, and so Charlie thought he was bleeding from his stomach. And so they rushed him to the hospital. Buck really couldn't say anything to the contrary, because again, the wind was knocked out of him. They rushed him to the hospital, and he had his hand operated on and sewn back together. I think he had actually sliced some of his tendons, maybe, if I'm remembering it correctly. Anyway, so someone calls my grandma to give her an update and says he's having his hand sewn back together, hand sewn back shut or what have you. And my grandma can't hear her. She thinks she's saying he's having his head sewn back together. And so she's extremely worried at this point. So we're sitting down to dinner that night and waiting to hear news. Charlie comes over to say what's going on. He just walks in really casually. He's like, "Hey, how y'all doing?" And we're like, "We're good. Just waiting on the news." Doesn't really say anything for a while, and finally my grandma just bursts out, "Well, how's his head? Is there any is there any news about it?" And Charlie goes, "Well, don't reckon there's anything they can do about his head." Knowing full well that there's nothing wrong with his head. And so that, of course, freaked my grandma out even more. The truth finally came out that it was just his hand, but I love that story. So that's them for you. You'll probably notice my southern accent come out more the longer I'm here. Contrast, the last couple of days' videos with the ones I take, especially today, in the next 2 days. You'll see what I mean. So don't be alarmed. But, oh, here, this. Okay, this was missing. When I went over to my parents' house, it's supposed to be a miniature replica of their house. It was built by my grandpa for me and my sister. Called it the doll house, and it really is just a little one-room, playhouse or what have you. But yeah, he built it to be a replica of my parents' house for us to play in. It's really super cool. There were times when we would actually come and pretend that this was a boxcar, like from the Boxcar Children, because we had two really good friends that we grew up with. We were all, the age proportions were reasonably good for pretending that we were the Boxcar Children. They weren't perfect, but I guess Steph would have been Henry. But whatever the case, we would play that in there. It's lots of fun. On the days that I was Link from The Legend of Zelda, I had many Link days growing up. I would come here, and this would be the market, or the shop, I guess, where I would buy my supplies in between adventures, and I'd have my sister, sit out there with all the supplies that I'd picked up and be like, "Alright, sell these to me." So, anyway, good times. I don't know why it's here, but it used to be right there in between my parents' house and my grandparents' house. So right on the hill in between.